what that should look like. So we base all our planning on in part from that, and also working closely with Learning Services and other members of the team. So one of our key initiatives this year is Google Apps for Education, initially in elementary. We are piloting that. What that is a suite of software that's free from Google, that has a classroom management system, and it has base applications. And there are third parties that develop applications for it. And so everything is cloud-based. They connect through any Chrome browser, and also Chromebooks are custom internet browsing appliances that can be used for that purpose. And no information resides on the Chromebook itself. They're interchangeable. And they're cheap, and they have a really low cost of ownership compared to other devices. So we're going to be rolling carts of those out this year, and we're going to be starting the Apps for Education initiative rolling in September of next year. And I can stop for questions.
Yeah. Mr. Blair's got a question.
Yep.
Just on the Chromebooks, because last year when it came, or last night when you guys were doing it through the regular board meeting, does that not sit in the United States?
It does,
under
yes.
Cloud?
It
And
does.
Does that not fall outside of FOIPOC requirements of British Columbia that everything kept in-house? So it's just a question I want, not that if it does, fair enough, but if it doesn't, why are we then able to do so?
We are able to do so because part of the Act allows us to obtain explicit permission from parents we have to explicitly say that we're using what's being used and what data will be on that, and then we get their permission, we get their buy-in for that. And we will have to get their buy-in, their signed buy-in, before we can issue them with the Gmail accounts to run.
Trustee Robinson?
Yeah, quickie, what are the 3 schools that are being piloted?
Quarterway, Forest Park, and Dover.
And Charlene? Before you go?
Thank you. To follow up on that, what happens in the case where a parent doesn't sign off on that? What technology would be available to that student?
Other technology, the teacher will have to work out how to do that, but they can use email, they can use pen and paper. But the Google Classroom allows a teacher to manage, so a teacher can issue assignments and receive assignments back, among other things. So that could be done by hand or by email or by other means.
And if that's being done on Chromebooks within a classroom, how then does that student, I just don't understand how, if a parent decides not to, then are they going to require a different piece of technology in the classroom to be working?
That would depend on what the teacher's doing, but I'm assuming we would accommodate that child.
Thank you.
Trustee Higginson?
Sorry, I think there's a disconnect, maybe I'm creating it, but the Chrome Cloud that we're talking about, pardon my techno goofiness, is that that's where we're storing the kids' work. It's not about the application the kids use, so the kid could still use all the equipment.
Yes, exactly.
Do the assignment, but hand the assignment in on paper or send it via email. It's just about where they store the kids' work that is the issue.
I do understand that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So next initiative is principal laptop replacement. The principal's laptops were getting quite old, so we've replaced all of those this year. Those are in now, and they're rolling out as we speak. Secondary lab replacements. So we're replacing one lab every secondary school this year. And projector and camera carts. Part of the output from ETAG was a suite of technology for classrooms, for elementary classrooms, and cart, projector, cameras are part of that suite. So we'll be deploying 100 of those. Okay.
Yeah, I got a question from Trustee Wade.
Thank you. When we
switch out the principal's laptops, what do we do with the old ones? Do we donate them to anywhere for anybody to use? Or?
They're really old, they would probably be recycled at the end of it. They're past their life. I wanna have this bit of really sweet irony happen where we donate something to computers for schools. That would really be. I love that.
That's funny. This is 7 years old, by the way, and still works.
That's the original. They came out in 2010.
Yes.
So ongoing, we have to keep our servers up. Kind of that's the backbone of the network and of the services we provide. So we replace 4 of those here at the DAC. And there's my we did that. We're still doing it, and we're hoping we'll have, once we're through this cycle this year, the data should be clear and clean, and we should be all set for next year. So we did have to have some extra staffing to help us with that.
Charlene has a question.
I'll be Tricia.
Oh, no.
We're sisters. Oh, you had a question? I'm
I do
sorry.
too.
Hi after another. What can I say?
Is it my turn? Am I going?
Yeah.
Thank you. We heard from Assistant Superintendent Saywell earlier that they were, I can't remember his wording, unable to utilize
Portal.
the portal.
Yes.
Why?
It wasn't quite cooked yet. It wasn't ready. And also all of the student accounts are not, there's a mess of the data, the student data. It's kind of messy. We have to clean all that up. So, and we have heard that the functionality isn't that good.
Where did that feedback come from?
I forget which district, but that was kind of, was it?
Thank you.
Tricia.
I'm sorry. Thank you. I'll behave. So just a question for my clarification, and it's
Yeah.
my own not understanding how the system works perhaps, but each school has a server on site. We
Yes.
all have a server currently.
Correct.
When elementary schools change to this new system,
Yes.
will it be necessary to have those servers?
We will, there'll be less load on those servers. It will still be necessary to have at least one server there to manage the office and to manage the network. Or,
To manage the network?
yeah, one of the service rules is to keep the kind of the network connected. It does functions around the network.
But there's no intention to carry on with computer labs as such in elementary schools then?
That's the decision. That's not in it. We held off and went with Chromebooks this year while we figure out what to do with labs.
Thank you.
Trustee Brandon.
Sure. This is asking you to engage in a little hindsight.
Sure.
And it's not a trick question, but it's a
Okay.
good question. Based on what you know now and what you've experienced with this provincially led software application, and comparing that with what was being developed by Sandwich,
Yeah.
would you, and you were on a member of the committee that
Yeah,
reviewed
of course, election committee.
something like 19 flaws in the
Yeah.
Sandwich program.
Oh, that one, yeah.
Would it not have been better, or would it have been better to put more effort into improving the Sandwich program and buying that?
In my
because it wasn't
opinion,
simple, cheap.
in my opinion, and in the analysis that we did, no. It was too big a risk. They had spent, I forget exactly, millions of dollars over several years. And we would have assumed that risk as well. And they had half a product. Most of it was presentation ware, right? They came in and did presentations to show how good their system was, but they never really showed you the system. There wasn't a lot there. It would have taken probably another $2 or $3 million to finish it. So they didn't have anybody with them. They had a few, but nobody was full in. So it would have been too risky. It's better to have gone through the pain we went through than to assume the risk of going that way.
And when this application is finally completed, will it deliver everything that it was promised to deliver?
It already is delivering more than BCE systems. The parent portal
It
piece,
was
I
supposed to
think.
be much, much better than BCE system.
Yes, it is. I agree.
Is it?
I don't know if it's much better. Trish, what do you think?
I would say it's better. I'd say it's better in that a person like myself will much more readily go to it, turn it on and use it myself rather than referring to a secretary. Am still trying to be optimistic that there's more potential in it that we will be able to tap into.
And we've had some significant growing pains as well, right? So as we get through it, we'll improve. Now, but the question is now, what do we do? Like, the core business of that system is what it's doing now. The parent portal is kind of an add-on thing to it, right? And so why don't we, and that's really, why don't we look at, you know, things like Jupyter grades, things like fresh grades, things that can deliver that functionality perhaps better, but that's what they do. That's 100% their core business. So, you know, we have to start looking at that as a decision. Good. Next generation network. So upgraded all the wide area network to all sites, significantly better. This was a good one. Those two was Sean compared. The bandwidth is up there. It's like a real network now, as opposed to where it was. It's quite painful. We couldn't really do anything like the initiatives we're talking about, the Google Apps for Education. No way possible before that. So, and you'll see the price of it on another slide, and so it's worth it. Trust me. And the Wi-Fi network is now fully functional. We had some issues with it last year, and we got those resolved. And it's fully functional in all schools and 95+% coverage. Not that number. We're in most places in all schools except for little corners here and there. We still got some portables to fix up, but that's been successful.
Trustee Solomon?
With the Wi-Fi, is there any concerns from parents that are coming to you that they don't want their kids to be?
I haven't heard of a single one.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Right, and so here's the money. So 360 for Chromebooks, 83 for laptops, secondary schools 250, camera carts 200, servers $80,000. So the total of those were funded costs, budgeted costs that we identified, and then NGN at $340,000 a year for that, and well worth it. And so that's a total number of 1.3.
So the Chromebooks, is that 1,000 units then?
Approximately nine something. And carts, and
Any questions, Trustee Bob?
I'm just curious about electricity and bandwidth type kind of costs associated with the technology.
The Chromebooks consume way less than a lap. They're little low-powered devices. The battery lasts all day, and then they're charged all night. I don't have kilowatt hours or anything like that. Everything's Energy Star compliant, so it draws as little power as possible. But one of those certainly is far less than that.
And data usage?
Sorry?
Data usage?
Data usage, we are watching that, and we've identified some money for next year for density for networks. So we'll keep an eye on that. We have to keep an eye on that, and we keep an eye on how it affects the wide area network, the NGN. And so inside the sites are really, they can take a lot, they can move a lot faster rather than the WAN link. So the WAN links are weakest link.
Secretary Treasurer's got a comment.
Well, I had Steve put this graph together and the structure of this. I just want to let the board know why it's done this way. So you can see that funded cost there, it's a local capital transfer. It's just another accounting thing, just like continuously moving it out into surplus. Is that the operating fund cannot purchase capital assets. So we have to transfer that money over into local capital to purchase that. So that's just an ongoing thing that the district has done year over year over year over year. So there's been some questions, can you use operating capital to use this this is what we do every year, and it's regular practice, so I just want to clarify that. So that's how that's funded, and we know about the Next Generation Network, so that was a reduction from our Main Street grant that we found out this, the December region.
Trustee Brennan?
Just I hope it's an easy question. When we have family gatherings, the grandchildren are getting older and they all have their devices. And the adults, children do too, and we have several in our home. And when they're all there and they're all online, it stretches our Wi-Fi. I'm thinking of, say, Wellington School, when it opens new and repaired. They're going to have a lot of use of their system.
Yes.
Because there's an internet cafe, there's charging centers. Is that going to be enough? Do you have enough capacity in that school to accommodate that kind of demand?
We designed it to hold out. We had the curriculum day at Dover Day. There was about 1,000 people there, and it worked okay. So, and the gym had 800 connections. When everyone was in the gym, it was 800 connections to the Wi-Fi from the gym. And it held.
That's sustainable.
It wasn't a brownout?
No.
I'm sure there was slowdowns here and there, but for the most part, that would have been everybody hitting it at once.
Any other questions? Great. So moving along to, I guess Mr. Pete Sagal is back up on the pulpit again.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
Thank you. Bunchy.
Thank you. Now, transportation, the update for transportation is quite straightforward because there's very few sort of budget projects that were in place. And in fact, a lot of information's been delivered to the board and its committees with respect to transportation. So it's quite simple. We implemented 2 new bus routes providing service from Cedar Attendance to Ladysmith Secondary. We put in the online student registration system. We implemented the ZPass student tracking system. And that's the main budget changes for 15-16. And we're currently reviewing policy and procedures on transportation for consideration of changes for 17-18. And there's a public input session on plan for April 12th for that.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So at one point we received some ZPass information, and I'm wondering if we'll get a refresh again before we sort of hack into the transportation review.
Sure, if the trustees would like specific information, if you could pass that on, and we'll make sure we gather to answer your concerns or address the issues.
Sure, it's just a matter of we have more data now than, because the ZPass is new this year. I think
Yes.
the initial shot of data only went through December. Just
Oh, I see.
you just get a
Refresh the
refresh.
data,
to-
yes,
to
yes, we will.
larger data set. Mr. Ball.
Has there been any impact using the what were spare buses onto the routes?
No, I haven't heard of any substantial issues with respect to the spare buses. It's been,
They're still running.
we just managed it, yeah. So no significant costs, no significant breakdowns, no.
Great. Any other questions? No? All right. Shall we call for an adjournment? Oh.
Nice try.
Thanks, Pete.
Yes, thank you, Pete. Now we're on to comparison data. He had just one slide, he told me.
One slide. That would be true.
Are all these presentations coming to us to put in the blank?
Yeah, I think
Yes,
so.
they will be,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they're online too.
So just before I get started,
Sorry, just before you start, can you make that bigger, because that's the screen I
Oh,
got.
sorry.
I know, but.
sorry. So before I get started, just wanted to, the intent of this meeting was to give, the board sort of the state of the nation, the lack of other term, of how we've done things this year to help you formulate your ideas and your desires and your wants and your direction to staff as we develop the budget for 16-17. So the slides here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through them because I think it becomes more of a resource material. I think sometimes we get lost looking at comps too much because there's a bit of grayness in how things get coded and stuff like that. Even class size composition, that's a snapshot of a day of the school year. It's not an average, it's not the total school year staffing. It doesn't look at the other teaching supports that may be in school. So you can say comps sometimes can get messy. So I do have a bunch here for you to show. It's all graphical, so I don't have to talk or walk or explain numbers to you. But anyway, so the first slide here is looking at the different functions, and now you have the document where these function definitions are. Function 1 being instruction, function 4 district administration, function 5 being operations and maintenance. I think specifically excluded transportation because comps for transportation make no sense because each district has its own unique geographical region. So I've removed function 7 because this creates unnecessary noise. And the same thing with backup utilities. Each region has different utility costs and stuff like that. So to sort of give you a high level stuff. So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. So if there's any.
Can I just ask one question? Yeah. So when I look at Chilliwack, and you look at their function 1 spending and their class size in secondary, they're at 22.7. So when we look at ours and see how much lower of a percentage you're spending on it, that's an indication as to why we're that high.
Yeah.
So I would say there was a correlation between them.
Yes. So, okay, so now we're into teacher wages, which is kind of interesting. The data you just talked, the Chilliwack have low class size, but the wages kind of is less. I'll do another slide where I try and map some of this out, but sometimes it depends how you read information, so that's why I make this class size a definite number, and then this gives me a different picture. So that being said, I know our average teacher his salary is higher than the nominal than Chilliwack. The funding formula is supposed to make us all even though, because we get, if our average teacher salary is higher than Chilliwack, we actually get a larger grant than Chilliwack would be, so.
Trustee
Sir.
Bennett?
Well, just looking at Prince George, I was given a stat years ago that the average stay for a professional at Prince George was 18 months. That's 1 winter and a half. That would suggest that most of the teachers are younger or lower on the pay scale.
Potentially, yes. That could be a correct
Could be one
conclusion.
factor.
It could be or just a factor, or yeah.
They were much lower on their instruction spending too, on the previous slide.
So there's lots of things. So that's why you don't want to read too much into the data because you potentially can make false assumptions or conclusions. So principal, vice principal salary is just and same sort of graph. Do you have a question on that?
I was going back to the previous slide. And there was a comment, I think in the survey about a early retirement incentives package. If our average salary is that much higher, the last time we had a workforce adjustment plan, as it was then, I think was about 2006. So there is a way of reducing your average salary to have an error.
If you want to make the upfront investment.
So
It's cost neutral.
That's right.
2 years, right?
So I think that's an option which has lots of obstacles to it because under the freeze and stuff like that, the salary freeze, I don't think there's any buyouts allowed because you need consecutive approval. And also, again, average teacher salary, if our average teacher salary is higher, we should get more of the grant.
Yeah.
I guess I'd like the board to maybe suggest that it be looked at as an option that could be brought to a bargaining table to have that discussion and look at the feasibility. If you're going to look at all options of trying to reduce costs, and if PSAC is an issue, then there are ways around that. Pressure in different places.
So the principal is slightly less than average, but everyone's kind of within the same ballpark there. EAs, again, this is just total wages, it doesn't talk about FTE, and the EAs is one of those positions where the wage from different districts is quite different. So it could stand, it's not necessarily service level. Support staff, so this is your trades, your clerical, your grounds, your bus drivers. So again, it talks about spend, doesn't talk about service levels, FTE. Other professionals, so that's your exempt group, your managers, excluding principals and vice principals. So it's slightly below the average there. So substitute costs, so this budget includes a $350,000 reduction over prior years. And we're still above average. So we've made huge improvements, but I think there's room for us to do more. And we'll be monitoring that, this year's actual results and see if we can project further savings as we move forward.
Mr. Ball.
So those substitute costs are for all replacements, correct?
There are for all replacements, so there's some replacements for protein, stuff like that, which we have very little actually in the budget. Can you recall, Maureen, it's like for actual
replacement
service?
costs are not just replacement costs, they can be any kind of release cost
Yeah.
or replacement of education systems
Yeah.
and, so yeah, it's the whole thing.
So I guess I would like to know, broken that one down where it was just for replacement for specific leaves, rather than, for example, we put on for cert training, that would be included, and yet that's cost recovery.
Didn't catch that last bit.
I would like to see it broken down by average by leave rather than for all replacements, because whenever we put on workshops for our staff or for teachers, that would be included, and yet that's cost recovery for you, it's no cost.
No, I think that would be that would be a zero cost. It's not an expense or a
Those
revenue.
are charged directly to a receivable account, they don't enter our expenditure accounts ever. So they're not included
But
in that staff.
you do have a valid point, Mr. Ball, that we will break that cost down into the different components. For comparative purposes, I can't do that, but I can break down what our components of that are.
That would be helpful, thank you.
Rob Sears got a question, and then Trustee Ray.
Part of that was under the cost recoveries, does that include anything that the unions might pay back for people that are off, because it's gone back into, and it's usually, I don't know if that money's recorded back into where it comes out, or if it's just recorded in the general.
It's similar to the MBTA Pro D. It never hits our expenditure accounts. All of those just hit in the receivable
They're just
account
a
and we
neutral.
bill you bill directly. So it's cost neutral.
Trustee Ray.
I got a question, and is this, in our collective agreement, I know that the teachers can carry over their sick days and accumulate them throughout their career. Is that something that is a provincial, is that done provincially, or is that a locally bargained? Because that may account for the lower numbers in different parts of the province, or is that something that's done throughout the whole province?
I believe that's a local item, isn't it?
I think all teachers accumulate 15 days a year.
No, but
across
I
the
mean, that-
province.
I know, but carrying it over, like in
I
this.
believe so.
Accruing.
Accruing.
Yeah, I don't think this, I think all districts accrue, but I could be wrong.
Usually there's a maximum number.
I can't remember if it's.
There's a maximum you can use in a year, which is 120.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's in the provincial contract or the local contract, the language on it, so.
It just may speak to why other districts are lower in that way,
Sure.
in that, that's all.
It could be
Rob,
lower.
Rob,
Yeah, just as a follow-up, I know that QP has a sick day, and 1, 2, 3 other districts that are lower do not, and that is a direct cost to the district under the replacement, and that can carry quite a weight on our side of it, so that could put that average up there quite high.
Trustee Ray?
And I guess, just to follow up, I know in our district we have those prep days. Is that is that something that is across the province too, or is that locally barred?
So you're talking about John's pet peeve on 6 prep days for 4 out of 4 teachers?
No, I'm talking about those days. You can call
Okay.
them
John's
John's.
pet peeve.
You can call them whatever you want, but yes,
Okay.
I'm talking about, is that something that is,
No, we're one of the few districts in the province that have it. It was bargained in the second round of local bargaining amongst a whole bunch of other articles where other things were given up to attain
I'm
that.
not debating that, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Seeing if that's part of the
if
reason
that's
why
part
it's
of the
higher.
reason
Yeah.
why it's, other
Possible.
districts are lower, that's all.
I'll
Possible.
break it out a little further, do you have something?
I just wanted to comment on this particular
Okay, take the call.
data. If you look at the actual salaries for Prince George and how much lower they were, then their percentage of replacement costs could easily be higher because of that relationship. So that's how these stats can mislead you as well.
Yeah. So you have to be very careful with comps, so you can make wrong conclusions based on your assumptions, so. Moving on, so benefits, so our benefits are higher, which our wages were kind of average, so I'm actually digging into this a little deeper myself personally, or having others do that. All districts should have very similar pension costs. We'll all have similar extended health and dental. The caveat there is basically you're self-insured, so if you have a high utilization rate, your premiums are higher. So we're just doing some further analysis of that. And if our premium utilization rate is higher, that's great information for our health and wellness people to know that information, so that maybe they can do some initiatives to help that cost.
Mr. Ball?
So just for one example from this, I know from BCTF stats that they looked at those who were on LTD and who were accessing mental health facilities. We were 3 times the provincial average. And they tied that back to the average age in the district as being in the higher end. And Surrey was using 1/3 of the provincial average, and of course their average age is way lower. So there may be some correlation there with that. And again, an early retirement incentives package may reduce that age and reduce your use of benefits.
So services and supplies, I don't think there's much to talk about here. But we're less than 10%. So you're always, our big cost driver is obviously our wage and benefit costs. So here's what I've taken, this is not absolute. But this is because there is no absolute data. I don't have the 1530 data. Again, that's a snapshot data that doesn't tell you how many teachers you plan to have. So what I've done here, I've taken function 1, construction, budget of schools for teachers' wages. Then I went in the grants manual, whatever, grants tables, they calculate what the average teacher salary is for each school district, and I use the budgeted expenditure divided by that average salary to come up with a proxy number of teachers. It's not absolute,
It's also odd that Chilliwack was the one that you pointed out, and yet it's really high.
Yeah, so it talks to maybe some of the supports that we may have in schools, those support teachers that are non-enrolling teachers, that we may have greater level sports, don't know, but so it is, but we're still high, right? The lower you are, the more teachers you have on this one, right? So this way, sort of, like Prince George, their wages were way less than ours, but when it comes to actual estimated SCR, which this is, we're high. So then I'm just going to go into function one, so teacher salaries percentage of the function one budget. Everyone's, I lost my percentages there, but everyone's just over 50% of the function one. So in principals, we're on the low end of that. That could be a function of last year we made that decision to defer the VPs on school size on elementary, so we have less VPs. Correlation here. Educational assistants wages. Again, we're the average. I think these are wages. It's not, doesn't talk about service level. It's just spend. EAs have a huge wage differential between different districts there. Support staff.
Lower.
So this is all within function one. So this is just school clerical. Other professionals. So some of these districts, I can't remember off the top of my head, have exempt business managers positions in the school office. So they would be higher, and we have all that centralized. We have the one bank account. Each school would have their own bank account in some of those districts.
So can you give us an example of how much money you're talking about, the difference between .002 and .006?
Not here. I don't have that on me, but I can create the backup data and include that once we
just kind of know whether it's significant or not.
It's not. Those are very small percentages. Substitute costs. So we'll break that down for us, what that actually means, what is actually, sick replacement cost versus actual leave for in service or whatever, right? Benefits. Service and supplies. So this is again, this is a preliminary budget. This is not the amended budget where we actually allocated some more resources to schools. Okay, so now we're function 4, so that's district administration. So I took the percentage here not off the function 4 budget, but actually off the total spend, the adjusted spend, which excludes the utilities and transportation, because I thought the allocation within function 4 divided by the function 4 didn't make as much sense in this case. So you can see some because we have 0. So this is a function 4
we have
district.
no district.
Pardon me?
We have no district principals.
We have district principals, but our district principals are in function 1. Because they're more, or you could have a district principal that is not school, that's school based on. It gets, sometimes when you look at the numbers, they don't create wrong conclusions. Those are fairly simple.
We need to fix, we need to get some cuts in that.
Yeah, and those are, so this is support staff wages in function 4. So like some of those districts that may have those business managers, they're exempt people or whatever, have more supports at the schools, they would have less supports at the board office.
Trustee Ray.
Sorry for asking so many questions. Last year at the BCSTA, there was chatter with the ministry about all of the districts in the province having to assign things to the exact same budgets, right? So we're all comparing apples to apples. This is very frustrating for just that exact same reason. It's hard to make any sense of it because what we put in one budget, somebody else puts in another. And until we reach a time where everybody puts the same things in every single budget, it's really hard to get to the bottom of what the heck's going on.
It's so that Bible or whatever, how those costs are supposed to be allocated is included in the package there, it's up that last tab.
Right.
So that's how those costs are supposed to be allocated, but there's, anything else is great, there's lots of grays.
Yeah.
And we're digging down pretty deep here, right, so you're looking at, 0.6% of your budget versus 0.5% of your budget, so we're drilling down pretty further. I think the higher level you do when you do your comparisons, the more reliable that is. The further you drill down, the less reliable it becomes. It is frustrating. That's why you can't put too much weight on it, but it's information for the board to consider as it develops the budget. So the professionals, so we're bright in yellow there. The substitute cost, so some districts don't replace any of the staff in district administration center. We don't replace any of the exempt staff, but clerk staff, they need to be replaced on as needed basis. Benefit costs, so dysfunctioning wages, again, on the higher end. Services and supplies, lower than average there. Okay, now we're in function 5, so again, we're using the comparative of the total adjusted budget. So function 5 is operation and maintenance and also includes IT. The sort of utility side of IT, so sometimes people forget that's where IT lives. So we're a bit higher than the average there. The professionals were lower than average. Subsidy cost, lower than average. So we're lower than average, but higher than average on our benefit. So we're going to dig into our benefit costs a little more deeply. Services and supplies, higher than average. I think that's it.
One more time.
So you'll get hard copies of all this and all the presentations.
Listen, I want to say thank you. I would like to thank everybody. Just thank you all for all the, and Pete, your presentation, everybody was talking about, all the good stuff we brought this year, and you had to be like, here's all the best we made. So I appreciate all the efforts that you put into it. Thank you, Graham.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to thank
And Bob.
So we have no unfinished business. Do we have any questions from the audience? And so seeing as none, I'm going to objection to it adjourned.
Thank you.